Hey everyone, my name is Kassidy and I'm the head trainer of Marley's Mutts Positive Change Program, a rehabilitation program that takes rescue dogs inside prison walls for training and healing on both ends of the leash. This week, I sat down with Lisa Porter, who co-founded the program, to share with you how Positive Change got started. From dogfights to adoptions, she shares it all, and most importantly, how you can start a program in your local community. Tell me how Positive Change got started.
So, it got started when the prison called me, but I probably wouldn't have answered if not for what had happened, for a couple of years before that. So I work with Marley's Mutts, which means I work with Zach Scow. And his dream has always been to start a prison program. It was not really my dream. I really didn't know much about it, but Zach has always wanted to do it. And we had done a couple of meetings at Lake Lerdo and a couple other prisons, and he'd been trying to get in and just wasn't getting anywhere. So he'd kind of given up. And so I was sitting at home one day and I got a voicemail from the public relations officer. I can't remember his name. I think it was Mike at California City Prison. And the message basically said, "Hey, my name is Mike. I work at Cal City Prison. We are trying to get a prison program going. And we had started with another organization, but it fell through. Now we have all these, this whole dog area set up, and we just need a trainer and we need a curriculum. And we were wondering if you might be interested." And I was so confused because I was like, how did they get my number? How did this come about? But I knew Zach would be super excited if I could get the rescue involved. So I called them back and he was like, yeah, we were supposed to work with Paws for Life. Is that the one? Yeah, Paws for Life. So we got everything built out. We have all this food, we have all these supplies, but they backed out. I don't remember why. And so we need a trainer to write a curriculum and come in and teach the program. And I was like, how'd you get my number? And he's like, oh, we found you online. We saw that you work for Caesar, because I work for Caesar Milan. And at the time I was teaching classes for him on the weekends. And I guess they were Caesar fans. And so that's what prompted them to call me. And, I had no idea how to write a curriculum or run a prison program, but he was like, look, we're going to have a meeting with Cal City Shelter. If you want to come in and sit on the meeting and see if you might be interested, you can meet the captain and you can see the area that we have set up and see if you might want to do it. So I didn't say anything about the rescue at the time. I just wanted to see what the setup was. So I went in and we had a meeting and it looked great. And I was like, where do you guys want to get the dogs? And he's like, oh, we need to find a rescue. And I said, oh, I know just the guy. I was like, I know just the guy. He's like, oh, we love Marley's Mutts. We would love that. The warden wasn't on the meeting. All these, big people were involved. And at that meeting, they were like, well, what should we call it? And I was like, what about Positive Change?
So you named
Yep.
it.
And they're like, we love that. So I left the meeting. And I called Zach on the way home and I was like, you're not going to believe this. And he was like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe this. That's so crazy. That's so amazing. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you come to the next meeting? Because you're supposed to meet again in 2 weeks. And that's basically how it got started.
At the time, were there a lot of other prison programs? Were they popular? What year was this?
This was 2016. So I had heard of prison programs, but I didn't know of any myself. And so I guess the only one at the time was Paws for Life at Lancaster. So they were kind of the only big program. I'm sure there were other ones, but none that I knew of personally. Yeah.
During that first cohort, how many trainers did you guys have, and how many students did you have, and then how many dogs did you bring in?
So I was lucky enough to be working at the Dog Psychology Center at the time. I was teaching socialization, walking, and puppy classes on the weekends. And so I knew like 5 other trainers a couple of them were assisting me in those classes. One of them was working not as a class teacher, but she was working just as a worker at the TPC. And so she would work at the dogs that were staying there, work with them. And so that trainer was Leah. So when Leah Marquez, when she found out that I was going to start a prison program, she was like, I want to be involved. I want to help. I want to do whatever I can. I want to do this. So that first round was just me, Leah, and Zach. And I brought my 2 dogs in, which was Sonar and Hershey. She brought her 2 dogs in, which at the time was Popcorn and Willow, Crazy Willow. And then Zach brought in Hooch, I think. And because that was the dog that he kind of was hanging out with at the time, a big orange dog with cropped ears. And there was 25 students. We started with 8 dogs. I can't remember honestly if it was 8 or 10. It was a lot of dogs. But we were basing this off of what Paws for Life had set up. So they had left their OPs, their operational procedures. And so we kind of looked at them and it gave us an idea of like what to do. And so, you know, Leah and I and Zach sat down and we wrote a curriculum and we wrote out our operational procedures and we kind of modeled it after what they had already set up because they had 8 kennels set up. And so that's what we did. And so the way that program was initially set up is the first 2 weeks was no dogs living there. And so we were just bringing our own dogs in and some dogs from the rescue to teach with. And then we went to Kassidy to find some dogs, and I don't think we found any there, which caused a couple of problems at the time. But we ended up having to pull from other shelters. Kassidy is like very low population, and unfortunately we needed a very specific type of dog for that program because they needed to be like no biting, no reactivity, especially for that first round. We kind of loosened up a little bit after that, but that first round we were very careful about what dogs we were bringing in. So most of them came from Kern County Animal Services, Bakersfield Shelter, Lancaster Shelter, and then I think maybe we got 1 dog from Kassidy. I don't remember.
We've since tightened back up on the dogs we bring in again. I think when I discovered the program, I remember seeing a bunch of muzzled dogs in there, and I was like, this is so cool, because at the time Lana had just started biting dogs, and I had never seen a muzzle before, and it inspired me to start training her with the muzzle. So that's kind of what influenced my training career a lot. But as I've come to find out, it's not necessarily the best place to take in dogs that you know don't do great under pressure or need just extra support in their training journey, which is totally okay. We're also not bringing in 8 dogs at this current time.
That's so many. Yeah, 8. We did it for a long time. We ran an 8-dog program for probably 3 years, 4 years after that. We did that at several different prisons, but we also were having, like I said, that first round was me, Zach, and Leah. But after that, then we recruited Samantha Johnson, Kim Erickson. That was kind of our core group for that initial. And then John Flores came in, and we had this amazing team of experienced trainers that had been teaching classes at the Dog Psychology Center for a long time and assisting in classes. Zach that had been running a rescue, for 7, I don't even know how long at that point, dealing with difficult dogs. And so the guys were getting a lot of support. you know, we were able to hands on each dog every time we came in. We were able to do one-on-ones with every guy. We also had a really strong group of guys that first couple of rounds. We got lucky, but yeah, it was really good. But still, there were bites, there were fights. That first round, there was a fight that had to be broken up with pepper spray. Like,
While you were there.
no, it was while we were not there. Yeah, a pit bull and a German shepherd got in a fight. They had to use pepper spray to break it up. Yep. There was 2 dog bites to other inmates. So I mean, it was like the wild, wild west. And then we got better at choosing dogs, and we still were bringing in difficult dogs, but we were being careful just where we placed them. The guys were being a lot more careful about the space, and everyone was more aware. And but yeah, we don't do that anymore. It's just, it's great to be able to bring dogs like in and help them be rehabilitated, and it teaches the guys a lot. But it only takes 2 seconds to make a mistake, and the risk kind of outweighs the reward, I think.
And there's also, when somebody is holding the leash and that dog bites someone else, that shatters that person's confidence. So they've been working so hard at building up their confidence, handling a dog, and for it to be immediately shattered because they were essentially responsible for someone getting bit and that dog now being pulled from the program. I've seen it. I've had dogs bite in programs that I've been running, and it brings the morale down a lot for everyone. So I think, we've talked about this several times on the types of dogs to bring in. And I think a lot of people have it in their head that we're rehabilitating really gnarly dogs in there. And I get phone calls about people wanting to donate their dogs that are biting other people or dogs. Right. Crazy. Because there's and there's so much in that environment that just the guys don't have control over. There's some things that they can control, but there's so much that they just don't have control over when they're in that environment. I mean, we had the yard was shut down and guards were walking the dogs once. And a lot of the dogs feel a type of way about the guards because they're.
Well, also Kassidy was a level 2 prison, which is a lot more freedom, a lot more space to move around. It's just a different environment, I think almost all the programs that we're at now are level 3 and 4, except for the level 1 program that we had, but that got shut down. Yeah. So mostly because the level 1s are 6 months out, and so they don't have enough time on their sentence to complete a full round of programming, basically. But yeah, so working at a level 2 prison, it was a little easier because the environment wasn't as tense. Everything was just a little bit more lax and more freedom. But like you said, the morale, it doesn't just bring morale down. It can cause fights because then, it's teams. So it was typically 2 or 3 guys that were assigned to one dog. And so then if one team member is holding that dog and something happens and then they get blamed or whatever happens, it can actually cause fights. It can cause all kinds of problems of them not getting along with the rest of the group, or, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that can happen, but mostly it's just we have to do what's best for the dogs ultimately and make sure that they're safe and all that.
How quickly did Pawsitive Change kind of blow up and expand?
So it was pretty fast. We started and we immediately started posting on social media. And because like I said, there was Pause for Life at Lancaster, but for whatever reason, there wasn't any footage of what they were doing. So there was no photos. So there might have been other dog programs, but we were the only ones posting videos of what we were doing in prison. I think I haven't seen any still. Most of the prison programs are showing after photos. They're focusing a lot on the dogs. And so we were posting videos of not just the training, but like the guys talking about how they felt, and videos of class, homework, like everything we were posting. And it was getting so much, people were just so excited about it, and they were so moved by it. And we started doing these, it was an idea I stole from fundamentals at the DPC. We used to make our students do these 2-minute speeches at the end of the week. And I would learn so much about my students in those 2 minutes. And so I started making the guys do it at the end of class. And those speeches were so moving. We learned so much about these guys. It was like the first time we would hear them open up. And we started posting those on Instagram. And it just blew up. I think we got to like 40,000 followers within the first few months. And then we managed to raise $100,000 the first 6 months of the program. And then after that first 3 months, the warden of Kassidy helped us apply for a grant, our first grant that we got awarded from the state. And then that allowed us to open up 2 other programs, one at Corcoran and one at Wasco, I believe. So it just got really big really quickly.
Which now Corcoran, we don't run a program there. Kassidy is shut down, the whole prison. When I first started, we were out in Victorville, which I think it's women's, the only women's facility we've been in, also the only federal facility we've been in. I think there's some talks of going back to Victorville.
We want to, but it's hard because it's so far.
It's so far, and we need properly trained in staff. We are a much smaller group at this current moment, wearing many hats, and we need more funding to train in more trainers so that we can send them into all the prisons and expand. So I get DMs all the time, whether it's on my personal page or the Pawsitive Change Instagram, of how can we bring this to our local rescues, our local towns in other states. What advice do you have for people that are interested in taking the first step in that direction?
Well, so, just like that initial phone call, you need a trainer and you need a trainer that's experienced teaching group classes. So I didn't have any experience teaching inmates or working at a prison, but I did have a lot of experience teaching group classes. So you want that, and then you need to write a curriculum. So, however you want that to go, whatever you want to teach, you need to write a class curriculum. And then you need to have your procedures in place. You kind of want all this in place already, because when you approach the prison or whoever your contact is, you kind of have to have a contact at the prison. You want to be ready. You want to have all your ducks in a row. Like, you want to have everything ready to go to show them that you're serious and that this is established and you're ready to get it going. Yeah, because they're all about proper procedures and rules, and they need to see that you are ready to step in and make sure that everything gets done the right way. So I would have that ready to go. Trainer, curriculum, and your standard operating procedures, basically. What does that look like? And then obviously, where are you going to get the dogs? So I'm assuming if you want to do this, you're probably either work at a rescue or you're affiliated with a rescue or a shelter, something like that. So you can run a program like this without the dogs living there. You could just bring dogs in and teach, or you could do it like we do it, which is, the dogs live there. That's a lot harder to do because there's a lot of liability and a lot of things can happen and you need more supplies. But yeah, so that's your first step, is have yourself ready. And then you want to figure out who your contact is, which would basically be your community resource manager or your public informations officer. Those are kind of your prison outside contact to the world. Set up a meeting with them. And then I think depending how that goes, then they would talk to the captains and the warden and decide if they want to do that. And then you would want to get your supplies, raise money. It's not super expensive to do these programs, but you do need to have your initial cost of crates and building out the kennels and food and training supplies. And then once you kind of have all that ready, the initial buy, then you just kind of need to maintain it. And then the cost of whatever you're going to pay your trainers.
I would try to find trainers local to the prison if you can. I feel like that's probably the biggest cost right now is, but you also have to find good trainers. So like a lot of our trainers are coming up from LA and there aren't any prisons in Los Angeles. So everyone's driving at least 2 hours each way to go to the prison. So I feel like the mileage and then, you know, paying the trainers their day rate is probably where a lot of our money goes if I had to guess. But when you were first talking about, you know, how the prison approached you, which is obviously going to be so different than anyone else trying to approach a prison, which is why I think when you're saying about, right. Also so crazy that Zach, like, why did he want to do this so bad? Did he just see it and felt super inspired by it?
So I think he had always been interested in it, but I think, and I don't want to speak for Zach, but my understanding is that he met, you know, one of our friends that runs Strength of Shadow Rescue. His name is Robbie. And Robbie was in prison for a long time. And then he got out. And with Zach, he adopted this dog named Shadow. And Zach and Robbie developed a friendship. And I think that is kind of what like reignited that spark of Zach really wanting to work with inmates and work in a prison. And that's when he really started trying to set up all these meetings and trying to get something going. But I think he was interested in a little before that, you know. Zach always wants to help people. He always wants to help someone that's like struggling in life, struggling with addiction or struggling, you know, in a prison. He wants to bring light where it's dark. Do you know what I mean?
When you first started, you guys had a lot of support from an administration because it's very different. Administration was coming to you.
Yes, it was very different.
Where do you feel like that took a turn?
Well, even with all the support we had at Kassidy, there was still a crazy amount of rumors going around with the staff.
Like what?
Like that we were going to make the staff pick up all the poop. It was just crazy rumors. Like no one knew what to expect.
I know like another big rumor is that they're going to, at the time at least, now it's that this one's settled, but that they're going to train the dogs to attack the guards. Right. Which is crazy because that's very high level training. It's like not achievable with just a slip lead. It's really hard to do. It's hard to train an attack dog and takes years to do. But
a valid fear, for sure.
A valid fear if you don't know anything about dog training and
or can't read the energy of the dogs we were bringing in.
Can't read the energy of the dogs, don't trust the guys, and a lot of, you know, positive programming is relatively new in prison systems as a whole. And you're essentially giving these guys a weapon of some sort. What did you guys do? Like, did you have meetings with staff? You were kind of just sharing a little bit about what were those like? Because I've never heard of these and I would love to know so we could get some of those on the books at the prison I go to.
Yeah, I think because I think the reason we don't do it now is because we're established. Since I guess maybe Marley's Mutts assumed, or I don't know, just didn't think of it that we might need to do these. But what we used to do and what we did at Kassidy in the beginning was we had a huge assembly with all of the staff. So from the warden on down, all the captains, sergeants, lieutenants, counselors, everyone. We had a 2-hour assembly where we did a little bit of demonstration of what we were going to be teaching. So with our dogs that we brought in, and then we also just answered a ton of questions. We kind of went over what our operational procedures were, you know, how we deal with different situations. They asked all the questions that they had. And that helped a lot for them to start to kind of trust and understand what it was that we were going to be doing there. And we used to do that at every new prison that we went into, personally, I feel like we should probably be doing those twice a year because staff changes all the time. And, the more that the staff understands and gets to know us and they understand what we're doing and they get their questions answered and they see what we're teaching, I think the better everything will go.
I would love to do those because I feel it's very hard. Everything's hard to coordinate in prison, but I think, right. No, it's just staff. And I think when you have solid staff in the buildings that are in charge or overseeing the dog program, it makes such a difference in the program. And you can really see this connection that they don't want to use the word trust, so I'm hesitant to use that word, but between a mutual agreement and mutual respect of a dog's barking, I understand you need to come out to take care of this dog and I'm going to let you out even if it's hours that you're supposed to be locked up because they're following the operational procedure. When you don't have staff that is willing to cooperate with the guy, is willing to do what's best for the dogs, it creates a lot more friction and that stress carries down onto the dogs, which then makes the entire program, it can kind of jeopardize the entire program. So I think I try to communicate with staff as much as I can, but just like you said, staff is changing all the time. And so I'm seeing new faces all the time. I don't know who's who. I don't know titles. I remember I offended somebody because I got his title wrong. It's so important to them. And I understand that, but I don't know the difference between a captain and a sergeant and a lieutenant. It's a rank. And so I understand, but I just don't know. I don't know those things. So I'm getting better.
I feel like that's something that we should be teaching our trainers too. And it was something we just kind of learned over time, but that's something that we've talked about a little bit is just having a class with the trainers of this is what this terminology, right? What is a lockdown? What does that look like? Who's in charge of the yard? The captain, all these different things, who's below him, the sergeant, that might be wrong, but you know what I mean? Lieutenant. What is the chain of command? Yes. Right? Yeah. What is first watch, second watch, third watch? All these different things have meaning. They all have meaning as it pertains to the program. And I think a lot of the trainers come in not knowing that stuff, and that's our job to teach them. You know what I mean? So I think we need to do a little better teaching our trainers about, the prison's operating procedures, not just ours. And then I think we need to develop better relationships with the staff. And for them, that means meetings and getting to know them and them getting to know us and understanding what we do.
There's been some staff members that adopt the dogs, and that strengthens relationships because sometimes they'll sometimes they'll bring the dogs in and get some more training advice from the guys, and the dogs get to visit and things like that. And that kind of bond, you see it overall, it just helps the program as a whole. And it's really cool because now it builds relationship and the officers are coming to the guys with questions about their dog and coming to the guys for advice on training their dog, which is I saw this with there was an officer and he would come to our mentors and I just saw them light up. They wrote out an entire curriculum to send home with him so that he could continue training the dog that they had worked with, because they take so much pride in what they do that it means so much to them to be able to help someone out that is kind of, is in charge of them and oversees them all the time. We've talked about moving into a space where we help other rescues open up their own prison programs. We did it with Arizona, which I would love for you to speak on that because I had no part in that, but that's something that we would like to do more of. I don't know if I feel super fit to necessarily be consulting rescues on starting this program. I could help on the training aspect. This is important things to know when going into a prison. This is how to carry yourself, conduct yourself. I wouldn't know the the starting points as well as you do, because you quite literally started it. So I would love to hear about Arizona, what that experience was like for you, and if you see Marley's expanding into something like that in the future.
So, I mean, initially Zach was like, I want to have one of these programs in every state, in the whole country. Yeah. And meaning our program, our dogs, our trainers. And I think we realized pretty quickly that that just was not feasible, not practical, not feasible. It was hard enough running our own programs like 2 hours away. But then we kind of moved into, can we help? Can we consult? Or I think initially the thought was, can we kind of package up our program and our curriculum and like sell it to, someone who wants to do it, which essentially I think is what we did with Arizona. I don't know the exact, but we gave them our specific curriculum. I went out there and I did a couple of days of training with the head of the rescue and the trainer that they had hired. I think they ended up going with somebody different, but we went to that prison. I don't remember what it was called. I think it was in Phoenix, or Tucson. So we went to the prison. We did a class. We did a mock class with them. We toured the prison. We picked out a space. We went to the place where they were holding the dogs, and I showed them how we do our assessments and how we choose dogs, and we kind of went through the whole thing. And then I think the initial plan was to work with them a little more, but it didn't end up working out. And so they kind of developed their own program, and it seems like they're running it successfully and they're doing great. I think it's with One Love Arizona. Yeah. So they're doing amazing. So I think moving forward, I think what the plan is to do more of like a consulting of like, instead of giving them our specific curriculum and training them, of kind of just giving them guidelines, an outline of, this is what we do. This is how you get it going. This is who you talk to. This is how you write a curriculum, instead of giving them ours and letting them go from there. Yeah.
Which I think that's the most important part, is like giving them the guidelines of, this is how you start it. This is who you talk to. This is like you said, who's in charge of the yard, the captain, and give them the tools, because at the end of the day, everybody trains so different. And that's the hard part about having a variety of trainers, even within the same program itself, is not everyone's going to interpret the curriculum the same way. So what I think, and quite frankly, there isn't one way to do this. There's not one way to train a dog. There's not one way to run a program like this. You could run a whole program like this on just fostering puppies where there's no training. You could run a whole program on this on grooming dogs. There's so many dog related programs that could be ran out of prisons that have different types of training, agility. If you want to,
anything that you teach a dog can be developed into a program.
Exactly. And so whatever your local trainer's niche is, whatever they specialize in, whatever they thrive in, so long as it's maybe not bite work or like agility,
nose work,
right, scent detection, like any of that stuff you could develop into a curriculum. And so I don't think that the specific curriculum itself is the most important part of the program. I think it's like, as far as expanding the program goes, I want to, a few things some adjustments we've made to the curriculum. Dogs enter week 5 right now. And part of that is, so the first 5 weeks, instead of bringing our personal dogs in, we still bring them in, but we're also bringing in dogs that we pulled with the intention to go into the program. So this gives us 5 weeks to assess them on the yard in different situations. We put them in the day room. We put them in a crate in the prison. We put them in the back area where we train. We take them on a walk on the main yard. We want to see how they're going to do in all these environments, with the loud cell doors opening and closing, with sometimes there's fights that break out. And I think the dogs are pretty shielded from a lot of that, but it still happens. So we want to see how the dogs are going to respond to that before we're permanently leaving them in there for an entire week. It is a very rare occurrence, but I'd say it very rarely happens in front of the dogs.
Big concern for anyone, and I know Zach did a post about this the other day. A big concern of anyone that sees our program is, are the dogs safe? Yeah. And then after that, are the dogs happy? Yeah. It's not enough for them to just be safe. We want them to be happy. We want them to be thriving. We want them to be learning. We want them to be fulfilled. You know, we want them to be getting exercise. We want them to be learning. We want them to be getting affection and toys and playtime, you know, not just with the guys, but with each other, toys, all that fun stuff that, you know, any dog would get. So I think the main priority is making sure that they're safe, and then making sure that they're happy and fulfilled and, you know, learning. That is super important. It's the most important part, I think, of what we do. And then, you know, obviously what the guys learn and their fulfillment from it and all of that comes second.
For sure. And I think it shows so much when, for example, I've like boarded a couple dogs, a couple alumni graduates that then go on to become adopted. I've boarded in my private business. So a dog will be adopted or graduate from the program, be adopted, and then they come stay with me while the owners are out of town. During that time, I get to bring them back into the prison. And when we pull up to the prison, these dogs lose their mind. They're so excited to go in and see their favorite people in the world. So the dogs are like, they're so happy and fulfilled there because they are getting attention all day. They're getting so much fulfillment. There's 3 to 4 guys assigned to each dog. So they are getting worked all the time. They're constantly learning. They're constantly getting so much playtime, affection, training, exercise, everything that a dog could need. Those dogs are more fulfilled than my personal dogs.
But like you said, every once in a while there will be a dog that is just not gonna be happy in there. The noise is too much. The atmosphere is too much. It's too much, you know, attention from the guys. Yeah, it feels like pressure. And so, like you said, those 5 weeks of bringing them in gives us a chance to see, is this the right place for them? You know, I would say like maybe 1 out of 20 dogs we can see is just not going to be happy in there. And then we pull them out. We don't keep them there if they're not going to be happy there.
Another thing that I want to incorporate in the future is I want everyone to come out of the curriculum with like a business plan written out so that when they go to their board date, if they are interested in pursuing a career in the dog industry, whatever it is, again, whether it's grooming, walking, training, they have something they can present to the board of like, this is my plan whenever I get out, and this is what I intend to do. So that's just some ideas I have because it is a vocational program.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was initially set up, was to be, you know, obviously, I think initially it was set up to be a vocational program. And then we quickly realized that like they were getting so much more out of it than that, you know, like learning to be vulnerable, all the things that we talk about all the time. But yeah, you know, the other side of it is they are learning a vocation where they can come out and they can work independently and they can be an entrepreneur and they can start their own business and they can make a lot of money. Or now that we're so well established, there's a lot of trainers that are willing to hire these guys. We just got a message, from Zach that one of our trainer friends is looking to hire guys specifically from the program because she knows that they're going to come out with a lot of knowledge and a lot of heart and they want to work and they're ready to go. So yeah, John Flores has hired a couple of guys from the program. Colleen Steckloff has hired a couple of guys from the program. Leah, myself, we've all, you know, we love helping these guys that come out and they really want to work with dogs and build a career and, be successful in that way.
What's the biggest thing for you walking onto an all men's prison yard as a woman? Is there anything you do to protect yourself, or do you feel any type of way? Like, I do like a little prayer before I go in personally. So I'm just wondering. And then as soon as I get home, I immediately take a shower because I just feel like I need to like cleanse. I'm not religious. So that says a lot that I pray before I go into prison. I just say, Lord above, please protect me today.
I mean, the first thing that I do is try to bring like a calm, confident energy. My years of working with Caesar have taught me that, working with dogs. And then also I've learned, leading a group, you have to bring that type of energy. So I try to bring in super calm, super confident energy. It's not like always very friendly necessarily. I'm not walking in there trying to make friends. I'm not trying to catch anyone's eye. I'm dressed in dark colors. I'm dressed like a boy. I've got my hair up. I got a hat on. I've got something tied around my waist. Like, I'm not trying to get any attention. I'm just trying to come in, walk through the yard. And I honestly try to just kind of ignore everyone until I get to where I'm going. And, I do usually have dogs with me, which means that people are going to want to stop and talk, and they're going to want to pet the dogs. And so occasionally I will let them pet the dogs, but I don't engage with guys outside of the program other than to give them information about how to apply. Because you do have to be careful. I think maybe, and sometimes Zach will give the impression that it's very safe. It is. And I do feel safer than I probably should. But underneath of that, I know that it is a dangerous place. Anything could happen at any time. There's been situations where there was a stabbing in front of one of our trainers. There's been fights that have broken out when I've been there. The yard has gone into lockdown. You know what I mean? There's been fires. Like, things can happen at any time. And so you do have to be on your guard. You should have your whistle on you. They used to make us take a use of force class at Kassidy. We had to do a use of force class every 6 months. I don't think they do that anymore, but that definitely opened my eyes up to like what we're walking into. And so I never go in there. I never go in like, oh, this is like, I'm totally fine. I always know that I need to be on my guard. I need to carry myself a certain way, and I need to be ready to deal with whatever happens. But that's kind of what it's like working with dangerous dogs too. And my first 5 years of my career was working with very dangerous dogs. So that kind of equipped me for that. But once I get into the housing unit, I'm able to relax a little bit more. I still know that I'm in a prison and I'm with inmates, and it can be a dangerous place, but I feel a lot safer with the guys that are in our program and with the staff that I know and with the dogs around than I do just if I were to ever be nervous, which I'm not really, but I'm most aware when I'm walking through the exercise yard. That's when I'm like, all right, just be chill, keep to yourself, deep breaths, stay calm. But once I get into the housing unit, I can relax and lighten up a little bit.
For me, like the second I step foot on the yard, especially a yard, I'm immediately all eyes on you, like a piece of meat.
Yeah.
Like a fishbowl for sure. And I will say, usually there's always somebody that comes to escort me. Like one of the guys from the program comes over and walks me over.
You should be walking in pairs. You know what I mean? I've been doing it long enough that I feel comfortable walking in alone, and you teach alone a lot of the times. But when we first started, there was always two of us walking in together. That's why I fight so hard sometimes to always have two trainers for every program, because like, you know what I mean? Like, you need someone watching your back. You need to watch each other's back, but that's not always the reality of what we can afford or what we have available to us. But yeah, and you have to command respect too. And that's another reason why I feel safe coming in, is because I know that the guys in the program respect me, and that trickles down to outside of the program. So I have a reputation when I walk in of like, oh, we know who that is. You know what I mean? Like, don't fuck with her.
Everybody kind of knowing who you are can feel, you definitely do have to carry yourself a certain way. I am happy-go-lucky and I'm alone, you know, like I did a whole year by myself. Yeah. That was a challenge, but now there's a male trainer, which I think staff is very happy about. I think they're very happy with me having.
I think staff worries about us too. It's not just that they don't trust us. I mean, they do to trust us to a certain point, but they also worry about us. Yeah. And they have so much to worry about already, other than our safety, you know? And I think they see us coming in and they're like, oh my God. Yeah. Like, and
they're short staffed.
Yeah. They want to make sure we're safe. They want to make sure that nothing, you know, untoward is happening. We're not getting harassed. We're not flirting with the guys. I don't really think they worry so much about what we're doing, other than, you know, what could be happening to us. I think it is very important to us that we are safe, you know?
For sure. And I've been pulled into the sergeant's office before, which felt like being pulled into the principal's office. And because they were concerned, they had a safety concern. Everybody has a lot at risk of us coming in there. What would you say is your favorite thing about being a co-founder of Pawsitive Change? And I guess now you're more of like, I would consider you a mentor to us trainers when we're calling you with crises all the time, or just needing advice on how to show up for our students and how to show up for the program.
Favorite thing? I mean, I love teaching. You know, I love teaching, and I love teaching people that really want to learn. A lot of times when we're teaching our clients, they would almost rather be doing something else. They have busy lives. They have a lot going on. They have a very small amount of time to work with us. And I'm not saying they don't enjoy it, but it's not the same as these guys that are like starved for learning and starved for you know, animal attention, like meeting another dog. And so I love teaching. I love feeling like I'm doing something important, you know, like I'm doing something important that's actually making a difference. So I know that I make a difference in my clients' lives, and I make a difference for the dogs that I work with. But when I work in the prison, I know that I'm making a huge difference in the guys' lives, in their families' lives, in generations to come, for the people that they're going to encounter when they come out, the clients that they're going to have, and the dogs that they're going to work with. It's like a huge impact that we're having when we go in. And then it's just very fulfilling to see the dogs that we bring into, like, they get so happy, and it's just a fun time. It's a fun time. It feels very purposeful. You know, like I said about Zach, like to bring light into the darkness. And I feel like that's what we're doing. You know, we're bringing light and laughter and fun and learning into something that can be a very dark, oppressive place. And it feels really good.
Well, thank you for having me up here, being on this podcast, and always answering my phone calls.